I learned to kind of squish my feelings down, you just try to shove it down. And I remember actively trying to disassociate from my feelings. I couldn't always do it. So that by the time I was 8 years old, I thought my mom went out on a date one night, and I thought it'd be a great idea to drink some of the booze.
This is the Knocking Doors Down podcast, featuring celebrities, experts, and everyday people who have overcome adversities, including addiction, mental health, and trauma, to live purposeful lives. And that's what Knocking Doors Down is all about. Arlina Allen, host of Sobriety One Day at a Time podcast, and of course, SoberLifeSchool.com. Thanks for joining us on Knocking Doors Down.
Thank you so much for having me.
Let's talk about what's going on now. Obviously, coming through your addiction, confronting it. You're doing lots of great work. Why don't you fill people in on exactly what Sober Life School is about?
Sure. So Sober Life School is kind of the hub. I feel like, when you're in recovery and you get excited about all these different things, there's just so many tools for recovery. And I thought, well, I'll put Sober Life School up, and that'll be the hub for like the podcast. I teach a self-esteem class. I do one-on-one coaching. I have a class called Sobriety Reset. So that's just kind of the hub. And my sole focus is on sobriety and recovery. And I feel like those are they go hand in hand, obviously, like soap and water. But I think of them a little differently. It's like once we solve the crisis of, addiction or alcoholism or whatever, then it's time to get into the recovery piece. And that's sort of like the underpinnings of the addiction piece that you were talking about. So I do this full time. I'm obsessed with all things recovery. So
soap and water sound familiar? You hypochondriac?
Oh yeah. I love soap and water. I'm a big fan of washing my hands even before the pandemic. Not to brag or anything.
Which is hilarious because we did some shady shit before we got sober, right?
Right.
What's gross thinking about it? Being the germaphobe that I am today is like snorting coke with like $1 bill. And shoving $1 bill halfway up my nose. Looking back now, I'm just like, ew.
Did you ever do it off a toilet tank?
Oh yeah, at a public bar. Yeah,
disgusting.
Absolutely. And plenty of.
And then you go like this.
Plenty of times. Get the gummer in there. But now so it's like I don't even touch cash. How do I pump gas?
With gloves.
I wear rubber gloves when I pump gas.
Really?
It's getting pretty gnarly. Yeah, and I'll kind of. If I'm with somebody who I'm not trying to look stupid in front of, like Jason, I don't care. But if I'm with somebody, I'm just like, I'll just have to tough it out. And then when I get into the car, I just like hand sanitizer. Some hand sanitizer, just like get it all over. Like,
You put hand sanitizer on right before we started the podcast.
I did.
He wanted to be clean for you.
I have a mustache, so I'm constantly touching my face. So I have to have clean hands in order to do so.
Is it because of the mustache?
It's because of the mustache.
Yeah.
My dad actually shaved his mustache during the pandemic because he goes, I touch my face too much when I have it.
Oh, wow. So is your dad a germaphobe?
No, but he's old.
He's smart.
So he didn't want to get sick. So he's not necessarily a germaphobe.
He don't want to die. I get it.
I hate being sick. I hate not feeling well. So that's why I think that's where it comes from.
Do we need to devote some time to this?
Yeah, let's jump into the self-esteem work. I am interested, though, in the self-esteem work that you do, the course that you have, knowing a little bit about it. That's kind of been, part
dude,
of
that is my get down.
Yeah.
I noticed. So I got sober April 23rd of 94. So this next month is a milestone for me.
Right on.
And over the decades, because I'm old, over the decades I've been sober, I noticed that there was this common reoccurring thing that kept coming up for me. And I developed this class based on the premise that we only allow into our lives what we believe we deserve on a subconscious level.
Agreed.
So, and it's so interesting because I'm 12-step oriented and I love it. I was able to overcome some of the hurdles that I hear, this day and age, there's so many different paths to recovery, and there's some common reoccurring themes. I bet you guys hear this too. Stop me if you hear these things like can't get over the God concept, or women who, can't get past the patriarchal tone of everything, or
Right.
There's a lot of people with a lot of religious trauma, or do you know what I'm saying? Like, so there's hurdles that people are like, oh, I can't do this thing because, and in my mind, that's like, those are like limiting beliefs, like literally.
Yeah.
And so as that relates to self-esteem, it's like we have limiting beliefs about our identities. And so what I'm trying to present in this class are some ideas and exercises to help people identify and transform those limiting beliefs, therefore their identity, to be an identity that's inclusive of, oh, I am a person worthy of receiving good things, or I am a person who is sober, and identifying what that means. And what I love about the class, if I do say so myself, is that it's a live class, and we do the work in class together. And we do that for a couple of reasons, because it is an built-in accountability. And it's not like you have homework to do, so that, if you don't do the homework and you show up to class, you know what I'm saying? Like, I was never great about homework.
Mrs. Allen's going to drill me if I don't write 5 things I like about myself.
Well, we can take that a few different ways.
I'll leave you guys alone.
She's going to drill me. That was an interesting choice of words.
We'll dig into that another time, a little bit later on, because we are going to go there.
Okay.
You and I were talking, and our drinking was like, hi, I'm just open to yes, I'll go home with you. But why start the podcast then to go along with this? Were you just getting a lot of feedback from people that you were having in your courses and everything else? Is like, hey, let's open this up.
Yeah. So I started the podcast about 5 years ago, and I've been doing the self-esteem class for about a year. And, there's a little story behind the podcast. So the One Day at a Time podcast is actually my second podcast.
Oh.
I did one on, I was in Silicon Valley, and I was doing tech sales. So I worked for companies like HP and Adobe and all that, and selling software. So I did one on sales. There was no women in sales doing podcasts at the time. But it was really on my heart to do one on recovery. But I, because of the 12-step traditions, I was really 11. I was really worried about breaking rules and being ostracized from my community. And I was afraid. So, but the reason I started, it was just something that I couldn't shake. It just kept coming back to me. And I used to attend, I still attend, but when I was living in California, I went to a 6 a.m. meeting called ODAT. It stands for One Day at a Time. And a girlfriend of mine was there at 6 a.m. and she died in a single car accident 3 hours later.
Yeah.
And it shook me to my core because she was only a few months older than I am. She and I kind of look alike, and it shook me to my core. And I thought, I have this dream that's on my heart, and it is later than you think. And it's like, I was like, what am I waiting for? Whose approval am I waiting for to do something that felt like a calling? It felt like a calling to share in general about my sobriety, right? And I really did want to respect the traditions. And I kind of started it with sort of this thin veil of, I'm a woman in recovery. I'm sober. And since then, I do talk about 12 steps. I don't directly come right out and say which one or whatever. I don't think I'm fooling anybody, but that's kind of how I sidestepped it. But it just felt more important to try to get the message out there. And it felt more important to listen to the calling on my heart rather than be worried about what other people thought.
Yeah, we've had some backlash from people over time, and especially the anonymity part. I would think one that kind of hit us, don't you think, Mikey? Where people like, hey, when we had Charlie Sheen on, we had backlash. It's like he's out there in the news,
Yeah.
Some people we've been like, hey, do you want us to omit your name or last name or what? And these are people that are willing to share their stories. So
yeah,
it's kind of like, all right, well, go screw yourself. We're not, I'm a 12-stepper, but I don't pull, too much of the stuff. I'll pull rarely something from the big book to read that like hit me, that if it's pertinent to share within the conversation or something. But I think people, I don't know. it's like, can we not be so uptight about it? You know, we welcome everybody, guys. And sometimes hearing these conversations is what's going to get people in the door.
Well, here's the thing. It's a tradition. It's not a law.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and listen, we are not saints, but whatever. I know people get very religious about 12-step programs. And that's I bristle at that. You know, I don't like, number one, I don't like being told what to do. Do you? No.
Yeah, so I like it as a guide.
Yeah, and I really am offended by people who are like, that way is the only way, and I'm like, okay, number one, that's not even true.
Yeah, no.
Right. And number two, you're actually turning people off to those programs. I mean, you're turning them off hard. It's like you're actively pushing people away from something that is super magical and amazing. And
yeah,
I hate that people do that.
Well, and that can go for a lot of things. Like if you force anything on somebody, it's just going to push them away. Like I went to a Catholic school, for example, growing up. A lot of those kids who came out of the school came out fucked up because when you force religion on somebody, a lot of people rebel from that. But like for me, I'm Catholic. I always have been. I've never lost faith. That's one thing that pissed me off when I was in rehab is they were like, when'd you lose faith, brother? I'm like, first of all, I'm not your brother. Second of all, I never lost faith. I did coke because it was fun. Have you ever done coke? It's a fucking blast. That's why I did it. I wasn't running from anything. I have great parents, like, and it was just so. Moral of the story, I get what you're saying.
I was up till 6 a.m. with two topless women. What do you want me to complain about? I was 22.
As Bam said, and I can relate to, tell that to the threesome I had last night. All right. It's not all bad. There is some fun times during this. I told you I'm an open book.
We got
True into story.
Shit. But yeah, for me, it's kind of like the people that this is the only way, like this singular path of it. You're kind of violating it right away because I struggled with the higher power to a certain extent. You know, I did Catholic school and baptized Catholic and things like that. And I believed in God, but how I didn't see it working through me. So once he's like, hey, it's the God I do business for. And it was like, boom, that's it.
So do you still struggle with a higher power? Or are you cool now?
No, I'm like
you have something that makes sense to you.
Yep.
Yeah. No, That's all. That's all.
Yeah, and everyone's experience through the AA process is going to be different, don't you think? I mean, you've done sponsoring and everything. You've been in it a lot longer than I have.
They say there's a wrench for every nut. Everybody does it different. I did a series with this gal who's sober 10 years, and we did a little series on step work, homework. And so we did it in 4 parts, and we shared, I got sober West Coast, she got sober East Coast, and we talked about the difference in homework that we did. Everybody's doing it different, even within that program.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what kind of cracks me up is when people say there's this one way is the only way. And I was like, we're not even doing it the same way within the thing. So you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. So it's all good.
Granted, we concede to the fact we're not unique and that we were powerless to a substance, but yet we're all unique.
You're right. It's that's one of those paradoxes, right? Like you give it away to keep it and surrender to win. And
we love sayings in groups, don't we?
Yes.
We could do a whole podcast just actually breaking down what some of the sayings are. But we want to talk about you. I love your tagline. If it was in a bottle, a bag, or blue jeans, I was doing it. I told you I'd get back to that.
Yes, sir. Do you know what's super funny? I was on a women's meeting this morning and some bitch used my line and didn't give me credit.
You got pissed, man.
And it was so funny because I've been in other meetings before in my area where women say that line. And I'm like, look, I've been saying it for like 20 years. So just stop it. Actually, I think it just resonates. It really speaks to the fact that it resonates with other people. It's like, yeah, I was doing anything to change the way I felt because I hated the way I felt.
Absolutely. Where do you think this all started? If we jump back, we grew up with the DARE program and we was
this is your brain on drugs.
Yeah, cracking the fucking egg. But I think we've gotten knowledgeable enough that trauma is really the gateway to substance use and abuse.
Yeah, for sure. So my parents are super nice people. They didn't demonstrate any of that using behavior. But a couple of things happened when I was really young. So I was sexually abused by a next door neighbor child. Someone I was about 5 years old, and she was I guess she was about 9. And and I was like this little people pleaser. I was fucking 5 years old. I didn't know anything. And I know now, looking back, that I'm not responsible for what happened. But I don't know. So anyway, it did a whole number to my head. I also grew up in the Christian church and was raised with some ideas about, the ideals of the religious church, right? There's some ideals, and ideals are like the horizon, right? It's a mental construct. It's not actually a place that you can get to. You can walk towards the horizon and never get there, right? And so these ideals are just like aspirations that we tried to aim for, but I didn't get that little piece of, oh, but you'll never get there. It's about, just making the effort to, like we talk about progress, not perfection, and things like that. And so I didn't have that context, but what I walked away from those experiences was this feeling of there was something really wrong with me, and I was dirty and I was bad, and just all that guilt and shame about that, because it was ongoing for years. And then my parents divorced when I was 7. Mm-hmm. And I didn't recognize this in the moment. Years later in recovery and therapy and all that stuff, I look back and was aware that children tend to take the blame for things like that. And I think because of my experiences of being sexually abused, I was already predisposed to thinking that I was a bad person. Yeah. And, and I for my whole life. So those two things combined really shaped my identity of who I thought I was, what I thought I deserved. And it really set the stage for, and my parents really didn't teach me any coping skills, not really. When my parents divorced, my dad, what's interesting is he's religious. He was a former military guy. He was a Marine. But he was the nurturing one. My mom, she was from Mexico City, Catholic, all that. She was the hard ass, right? And so I was left with her, and her way of dealing with I had really big feelings. Her way of dealing with my feelings was to get angry and kind of get bigger, and I learned to kind of squish my feelings down, you just try to shove it down. And I remember actively trying to disassociate from my feelings. I couldn't always do it. So that by the time I was 8 years old, I thought my mom went out on a date one night, and I thought it'd be a great idea to drink some of the booze that was I was really young. I thought it'd be a great idea. My sister and I were home alone. My mom went out on a date. She probably just went out to dinner, whatever, it's normal. It's fine. But I thought it'd be a great idea. And I remember taking that first drink. My older sister, she was the compliant good girl, right? She's like I was not. Anyway, I remember that first drink that it burned my mouth. It burned my lips, like it burnt all the way down. But when it hit bottom, that warmth spread through my whole body. And the juxtaposition between all of a sudden, all that self-hatred and self-loathing, it all was lifted. And I was left with these really good feelings. I was comfortable for the first time. I felt good. And the juxtaposition between those feelings was so dramatic. It burned in my psyche forever. And I was like,
what it was?
I don't. I remember it was a clear glass bottle, and it was brown liquid. And I probably mixed it with some juice. Mm. But I went straight for the hard alcohol. I don't think there was anything else in the house, to be honest. It had dust on it. It was probably just leftover from a party or something. I never saw my parents drink, either one of them. Huh. Except for one time we were my dad worked for this government. They used to call them outfits. Old guys called companies outfits. Right. And my dad worked for an outfit called FMC. They built the Bradley tanks. And it was actually pretty cool. But there was a company picnic, and my dad knocked back a few beers. And I remember in the parking lot walking to the car, think my stepmom was driving, and some guy's like, "Hey, Frank, take it easy." And he's like, "I'll take it anyway I can get it." And I was like, what was that? But my dad was like uber religious. So that was like the only time.
Super common for kids to first start drinking is they have their parents' liquor lying around somewhere. Like, I wonder how many stories would be different if their parents locked it up and couldn't find it. You know what I mean? Right. Like, I just wonder, I'm sure you would have taken a drink sometime in your life eventually, but I just wonder how long that would have been postponed had your mom keep the liquor elsewhere or locked.
Yeah. That's it. Cool. Yeah. I don't know.
But it's interesting when we find that first, like you said, all of a sudden I feel different. And I think that's what people don't, when I've talked to people that want to understand addiction and stuff, is like whatever reason, our chemistry, genetics, who knows what it is, all of a sudden we have this ability to escape that feeling. Cause I relate to you in that, felt like everything had to be shoved down, seen, not heard.
Yeah, that was right. And that's, now we know that that's all anybody wants is to be seen and heard and understood. Right. And validated. And I've, in the work that I do, especially like with women who are like in bad relationships, I've learned never to speak badly of the person they're in relationship with. I understand now that that's just a reflection of the level of their self-esteem. And so I'm always focused on, what can we do to help you build your self-esteem so that you feel like you deserve to be treated better?
Yeah. Well, and I think that's why, I don't recollect if you spoke with her or not, but you should. Brianne Davis.
Oh yeah, she was on my podcast. Love her.
Yeah, the sex and love addiction category. Mikey and I took a test. We fall into it, and it's really.
Oh yeah, we failed miserably.
You're pretty high.
I'm like, chalk it up to something else I'm into.
God damn it!
Yeah, I was like, son of a bitch.
I was like 37 out of 40. You were at 33 out of
33, something like that. She goes, if you get 18, you failed. It's like, okay, well, no stranger to fail a test.
Or you win the test because now you know the solution.
Sex addicts. We won.
Well, but it's identifying that people that just may not get that. Like you're talking about toxic relationships, who we choose to engage with, be it an intimate relationship or whatever, is totally a reflection of self.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah. Yeah. And when I was talking to Brianne, she invited me to some meetings. And so I went and checked a few out, and the language was so like, it was one of those things that hit home for me, because love addiction will take you out just as fast as all the rest of it, because it all ends up in that same dark place, which is I am fundamentally broken and unlovable and alone and unworthy. Right. And that's a very dark place to end up in.
Yeah, well, and I'm glad that you do the self-esteem work because, men need to engage into this a lot more. I know that women are getting far more hip to it than men, but we need to, because I know that I took my self-esteem and set it right over here in somebody else's hand to do this.
Yeah.
Or this. And, it's no different than the drink. I'm having this terrible feeling and I want to escape. Please give me something to escape. And that's why I could relate to you about if it was in a bottle, a bag, or blue juice, the guy was doing it. It's like, okay, well, this person's no longer feeding that. I'm looking for you to give me self-esteem. Okay, 5 beers in. Hey, what's your name?
Yeah, that's always we're always looking for the next high, right? And I can get high off people just as easily as drugs or alcohol or shopping. Let's be honest. There's a multitude of things. And I was talking to this lady, she's like a counselor, a therapist, and she was talking about how we all have these little exits. We're exiting the present moment. Something in the present moment is just not tolerable. Like something is not okay with me. And so I choose to distract with Instagram or shopping or eating, or, you know what I'm saying? It's like we can make these little exits, and it's not like anybody is going to be able to be like 100% present 100% of the time. Like that's not the goal, but it's just to like notice what's taking me out of my present moment. Like, why do I feel like what's going on? And so I feel like the self-esteem work I do is mostly about reconnecting to ourselves because I spent a lot of time and energy disconnecting from myself, sort of like that. Have you ever seen those old timey pictures of the switchboard operator? That's like that chick with always the uptight hairdo and sitting in front of and with the plugs. And there's like a switchboard full of holes. And she's got these plugs. That's how I felt early in my sobriety. I was like, I have this plug and I don't know where to put it. It's like I'm having a feeling and I don't know what it is because I spent so much time numbing out that I don't even know what's happening within me. Mm-hmm. So recovery was about recovering my whole self, all of the feelings, the good feelings and the bad feelings, supposedly bad feelings. The painful feelings are really just like guideposts, and the feelings are there to help me guide through. But I was so numbed out to my own self. How could I tell you, how could I be a good partner? How could I tell you what I want or need as a friend if I don't even know? And I think a lot of women, I'm sure you guys will probably validate this, but a lot of women are like, you should know how I feel. I'm like, what do you mean? You don't even know how you feel. How is he supposed to know how you feel?
This is why I'm single. Because yes, I know those women. It's like
you're adorable. There's no need for you to be single.
It's real quick story. I was actually talking to this girl and she was like, well, I'm very strong believer in the man does the man stuff and the woman does the woman stuff. And I'm like,
what's that?
Yeah. And I was just like, so when I get off work, there's going to be dinner on the table and the house is going to be clean then, right? And she was like, well, you can cook too. And I was like, oh, so it's not just men do men stuff. It's men do woman stuff too. And you just kind of hang out and do your own thing. Yeah, no, fuck that. So
yeah, that seems to be like, we need to qualify that. Like, what specifically do you mean? Right. It's like, and in relationship, especially like if you're in a relationship, like live-in type of stuff, it's like the distribution of work is important to decide. And if you want, some people there's pink jobs and blue jobs, like the garbage is typically a blue job, and the, I don't know what else was a pink job, but that never has made sense to me. Like we all, in my house, everybody does everything.
Exactly. You're a team. You know what I'm saying? Like if you get off work late, I have no problem cooking. I have no problem cleaning. But if the trash cans need to go out on Thursday and I'm out of town till Saturday and the lawn hasn't been mowed yet, do you mind? I'm not in town. I can't do it. You know what I mean? Otherwise it's just just being a team. It's helping being each other out. Nobody
what's so funny? Right, exactly. What's so funny is in my neighborhood, like my husband was gone for a couple of weeks. And so I mowed the lawn and I thought my neighbors were going to break their necks looking at me mowing the lawn. I was like, what is the problem here? Why is that so weird? Just because I'm in a bikini? Is that no, I'm just kidding.
Is it because I'm naked? Is that why I'm trying?
Is that why? Why are you staring? It's so weird.
Is it the tassels that spin when I walk? What is going on? Everyone mows
in those in a really long time.
Took it to a completely different level there, didn't we?
Hey, we're having
but
fun.
Yeah, I get what you're saying though. It's like there shouldn't be, okay, well, I'm going to do this, you do that. It's like, no, you pick up the slack if I got stuff going on. And if you got stuff going on, I'll pick up the slack.
Exactly.
I was just so dumbfounded when she said that. I'm like, first of all, we're not in the fucking 50s. And I'm not coming home and putting my hat, honey, I'm home, like Pleasantville type shit.
All right.
It's just so like,
are you going to vacuum in a skirt and pearls? Like,
let
what
me
are we talking about
introduce
here?
you to 2022. Okay. Like, let me introduce you to that because things change.
So where did we really start then? 8 years old, but when do we really start like things taking off? Like the depths of it? Was it high school period? Because we're not quite adults, but we're not kids anymore.
Yeah, like obviously I didn't start drinking daily at 8, but things started being problematic when I was about 14 years old. And I think that's just a hard age anyway, because that's when all your hormones are kicking in. And so I had, I was having a hard time in a multitude of areas. I hated who I was. I wanted to be anybody but me. And so I didn't even know who I was, that at that age, you're just trying on different things to see if that's who you are. But I had always had like when I was growing up, they called it boy crazy. I was always boy crazy. I always thought, I think I fell into sort of that idea, like the Prince Charming, like I thought love, two things I thought were going to save me, love or money. Cause we grew up kind of poor. I didn't want well, that's not true. I did want for things, but I was just selfish, greedy. But I was confused. I was looking to the outside things. I figured that they would make me okay. I thought if I could find love, someone to love me, like romantic love, then I would be okay. If I had enough money, then I could buy all the clothes so that I could be socially acceptable, right? And so I was chasing things outside myself, and I thought I had to change who I was to get those things. And I felt like I failed miserably. And so really drugs and alcohol kind of saved my life. They were the things that I was able to use to medicate my feelings. I thought at some point I was like, I think drugs and alcohol saved my life, because if I had to feel all those feelings, I don't know that I could have survived. I barely survived anyway, right? Like those young years when you just hate who you are, and I was skinny and awkward and not cute and anyway, all the bad things. And so that's when I was smoking weed in junior high. I moved from my mom's house to my dad's house when I was 14. And so for a period of time, my dad would drop me off at my girlfriend's house, and she and I would walk to school together. And her parents drank. And so they didn't lock up their shit either. And so I was, watering the bottles of vodka down and doing all that stuff. I was drinking before school in junior high.
Wow.
It didn't have a lot of consequences. I think I was sent to the principal's office one time, and that was about it. But it wasn't until and then I was smoking weed all through high school. But it wasn't until my early 20s, like I started doing the bar hopping thing, that I was starting to get some significant consequences where I would wake up and be like, oh, that's not my ceiling. You look down, you're like, that's not my comforter.
Sound familiar?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I just, put myself in dangerous places. I was drunk driving. One morning I woke up and there was weeds coming out. I had this little Ford Ranger that was cute, but it had, between the hood and the quarter panel, there was a bunch of weeds coming out. I have no recollection of how that happened. Just all kinds of crazy stuff like that. I was getting into, relationships with married men, and, crying about how all these men were emotionally unavailable. Meanwhile, I didn't recognize that I was picking these people.
Yeah.
Like, was not connecting the dots. So it just went from bad to worse. And then when I was 25, when I was 23, I had a really bad night out. I was with my sister and the married policeman I had been dating, and we had just broken up. My sister was driving me home because I was drunk out of my mind. So she was driving my little Ford Ranger. And we see the guy I had been dating. Was doing a field sobriety test. He pulled someone over, and apparently I lost my damn mind and punched the windshield and broke it in a couple places, and was trying to crash the car while my sister was driving. And I kicked her in the face and gave her a bloody nose. And she managed to pull the car over into the neighborhood that we grew up in, and ran to a neighbor's house that knew us, that she knew, and got some help, because I was in the middle of the street losing my damn mind for whatever reason. And by the way, this is all secondhand information. I have like little bits and pieces of, I recall part of it. But, the next morning I woke up with that sickening, sinking feeling that something terribly wrong had gone the night before. And I had my hand was all swollen, and I had actually gone to the bar to meet the policeman's best friend, who I was then dating, who was there the next morning. And it was just a mess, right? But my sister was like so hurt and disgusted with me. She started going to Al-Anon, and I was very confused by that. But that was like the beginning of the end for me. That wasn't like the end, but it began the questions like, why is she going to Al-Anon? Am I an alcoholic? What makes me different than someone else? I hang out with all these other people who are doing the exact same things I'm doing. Are they alcoholic? It's just like one question led to another. And I spent the next 2 years in the self-help section of Barnes & Noble trying to figure out how to fix my life, whether it was like the 7 spiritual laws of money, or the Men Are From Mars book, or do you know what I'm saying? It's like Tony Robbins classes. I did everything to try to, what I was doing? I was trying to think my way into right living. And it wasn't until I got sober and into the rooms, the 12-step rooms, as they talk about living your way into right thinking. That's using action, right actions, leveraging the law of cause and effect. So I was very confused, but it took me 2 years of wrestling with the idea before I ever showed up at a meeting. Well, and I started getting better.
I think that's important for people to understand, is that it's a process, and life is always a process. I mean, you referenced it earlier, spiritual progress, not spiritual perfection, that we don't necessarily reach the horizon, and it's just part of it. But we can now in sobriety, and be it if you are a meeting person like you and I are, or other people we've talked to, had on here that aren't, that's okay too. But that all of a sudden you become clear in managing your emotions, thus managing your life.
Right. Self-regulating was really, I did not know how to self-regulate.
What are some of the things you did to start to develop self-regulation and boundaries too? Oh, that's the fucker.
That's the kicker right there. Right. Well, so I was so desperate to be sober. The way I got sober is, I was in a sales job, and 2 of my customers were actually in the program, Randy and Mitch, and they were fine, upstanding men of the program. They were breaking off bits of knowledge, and they were doing it in that way that we do, where it's like, we're meeting eye to eye. They weren't talking down to me, because I can't hear anything from people who are talking down, like that condescending, like I can't hear it. Like they were like the religious tones, and I just couldn't hear it. But they were like, oh, this is what happened to me, and this is what I did. And they would share some stuff, and I was like, oh my gosh, I just was identifying, like we are alike. And they were like, this is how I got out of it. I went to meetings, I got a sponsor, I started working steps. And so they took me and they started breaking down concepts. And I think the one that really blew my mind was, if you keep doing what you're doing, you're going to keep getting what you're getting. It's about cause and effect. It was scientific. It was like impersonal. It was like not a moral thing. It's just cause and effect. And if you can't control the cause, which I couldn't not drink and smoke weed. That was my thing. I couldn't not do that. So that was the problem I went to solve. And I was so desperate to be sober. They said I had to work with the women, and I was terrified of the women, because I had spent so much time and energy decorating the outside. I felt like I had nothing going on the inside. I'm like, I didn't even know how to relate to women. The only women I had in my life was my running partner, because it looks bad to show up at the bar by yourself. and that was it. Like, my mom disowned me on a regular basis, because
you don't want to be that person.
Oh, and I mean, yeah, it just doesn't look good.
It's a bad look.
And I was all about looking good.
That's the facade that we like to put on, right?
Yeah, it's all about image management. So, but anyway, so I mentioned Randy. They quickly, they're like, the women work with the women. And now I understand why, because I kept hearing that people were doing steps 1, 2, and 3 and relapsing. Like, a lot of people were doing that 1, 2, 3 shuffle thing. And I was terrified of getting loaded again. Also, I heard that it's only like 1 in 100 people make it, whatever that was. And I was super competitive. So I was like, I'm going to be that one person. So the gauntlet was set, but they said I had to get a female sponsor, and I was terrified. But I remembered this woman remembered my name the second time she met me. Nobody ever remembers my name the second time. Arlina is not super easy to remember, but she remembered my name. And I was like, it was like the clouds had parted and the sun was shining. It was like, oh, the angels were singing, like, this is the one. So I asked her, you know how I asked her to be my sponsor? I asked her if she would listen to my inventory, because I knew I had to do this in this 4-step thing. And she was like, I would be honored, but we're going to start with step 1. Right. So that's what we did. That's how I ran it. I gave it, I don't really do anything in half measures except for recovery, but I still had enough desperation in me that I did everything she told me to do. I did all the work.
Yeah. And it's imperative if you get a good sponsor. But what did you discover of why the separation of men and women? I've had people ask me about that, and I explained from my standpoint, but I've never asked a woman.
Well, because for 2 reasons. I feel like there's, you guys are good, upstanding men, but I know some men who are not. And so it's a very vulnerable time. When you're newly inside, you're very vulnerable in the sense that you're so desperate to be heard, understood, seen, accepted, that and it's a very intimate experience to go through the steps and like lay out all your stuff to somebody. And they're like, hey, try this, try that. Don't do this, don't do that. It's just a suggestion, but they help you talk things through. Praying together. I remember her and I would pray together. We'd hold hands and pray. It was like just such an intimate experience. And I think it would be confusing to do that with a man, because for me, I would confuse that with romantic love. Absolutely. I did love this woman who helped me. I was so grateful to her on such a profound level, because for the first time in my life, I could see in her eyes that she got my kind of crazy and she wasn't judging me. Yeah. Right. She loved me despite of all the shitty things I just told her. Right. And she helped me to have compassion for myself. Like, she led me out of my suffering, and I will love her till the day I die because of that. If it were a man doing that, I'd probably want to fuck him.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I'm saying? I would be very confused.
Remember when I told you I went to that meeting out of town, and I was at this meeting with a friend in my online AA group and doing like a men's retreat. And so we go, it's a mixed meeting, new guy there, new girl there. And I tap him and I go, hey, watch that guy. He's going to go talk to that girl before the end of the night. At the end of the meeting, that fucker, he made a beeline right to her. And she just looked at me and went, how did you know? And I just went, hey, I know, because guess what? If I was on day one, that's exactly what I would have done.
Yeah. I mean, that's a guaranteed, like, I don't know. It's all bad. And here's the thing, water seeks its own level. So if you're new and you're not mentally well, what do you think you're going to attract?
Yeah.
You're going to attract your equal opposite. Water seeks its own level. So it's, and they say that don't, I broke this rule, but they said not to get into a relationship your first year, because you're growing a lot that first year. And, in that first year, as you're growing and evolving and changing and healing, you want to attract from that level. Right. Yeah. And so, I got super lucky. I met my husband, I was 5 months sober, and, so far, so good.
Still like him.
Yeah. Oh my God. He's my favorite person ever. But what's interesting is he's super funny. He's 32, 33 years sober. But what's interesting? I feel like our relationship worked because we followed the process of resolving resentment the 12-step way, which was I would go to my sponsor and I would say to her, Bobby did this and Bobby did that. And she'd be like, okay, well, I don't sponsor him. I was like, you're such a bitch. But no, I was grateful for this. She would say, I don't sponsor him. So let's look at your stuff. And she would talk to me until I got to that place of empathy where my behavior, I could see how my behavior was painful for him. Mm-hmm. And it was like, oh shit, that awkward moment, you realize you're the asshole. Yeah. I was like, oh my God. So then I would go to him and be like, I recognize this pattern that I have. I think it's because of this. And what I'm willing to do is make amends. Now, I am sorry I hurt your feelings and did all this stuff to you. What can I do to make it right?
Yeah.
Of course, there's the living amends. It's all encompassing. I hear people say, oh, it's not an apology. Fuck yeah, it's an apology. And it's change your behavior. And it's recognizing what your pattern is so that you're taking full, like extreme ownership of your own feelings, right? Yep. And your side of the street. Meanwhile, he was doing the same damn thing with the men. Yep. Right. And it sounds like y'all are harder on each other than women are. I think women are a little softer, but he was getting his ass kicked at the other side. And they were like, you need to, do the whole thing. Right. So by the time we came together, I was owning my part, like, oh my God, this is what I did. I'm so sorry. And he was, it takes all the wind out of your sails when the person that you love is willing to be humble and like, oh, I see my part. Yeah. And so that's kind of how we run it this whole time. We got married in 97 and he's still my favorite person.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. And you have 2 boys?
I do. My older boy, Travis, is 21 and my younger boy, Tyler, is 18. They've never seen me loaded except for that one time I had surgery on my knee and I was on some drugs.
I was on that good stuff.
Well, we can understand that.
Yeah, there is an exception. There is a time and a place.
So being that you both are in recovery, you really open with the boys and maybe about that, hey, there's genetic lineage and everything.
Maybe a little too open. Like,
really?
I was like, look, you could do drugs, but you might suck a dick at some point. So just be aware, you got the crazy gene from both sides. Maybe that's not the right thing to say to an 8-year-old, but
tell your 8-year-old mommy, what's a dick? The guy down the street?
Dick. What are you talking about? No,
have you seen them drink, or have you picked them up when they've been intoxicated or anything? Because 18 and 21, those are prime ages for partying.
Well, I'll tell you, my little one went to rehab already.
Really? Wow. I was in rehab at 21, so I get it.
Well, the little one, 18. Yeah, he was, he was 17 at the time. So he had to go to like this adolescent program with these other kids that were like on heroin and had.
Oh yeah.
I mean, those kids. It was hard luck stories. Like, if we come from a good home, he's never seen us loaded. We have a very nice house. They went to private Christian school. We have some money. You know what I mean? It's like obviously we fuck up, and we always apologize and we tell them how much we love them all the time. And we talk about our feelings, and they see people come to the house, and I work steps with women and my husband works steps with men. And we've held meetings in the house. It did not make us immune. It did not make him immune from the addiction. Mm. And one day my husband comes into the kitchen holding this backpack. And he opens it up and takes this bottle out and slams it on the counter, probably a little harder than he had intended. It was a giant handle of Fireball. And inside the backpack was this big bag of beautiful green weed. And I was like, oh my God, I hadn't physically held a bag of weed for decades. Right. And my inner drug addict was like, oh my God, maybe we should smoke some. Who said that? But that was... And it was terrifying because we didn't know when it was going to end.
Sure.
And he went through rehab and he came home and he was doing meetings. And so that was last June, and he's been fine since then.
I want to comment on that real quick. Sorry to interrupt you, but I just wanted to say before we jumped into something else. And Jason had mentioned this too, like how addiction comes from trauma. And I don't agree with that. I'm not saying they don't, but I'm sure a lot of it does. But like mine, when I went do coke and went into rehab for it, I had a family like yours. I went to, Catholic school. My parents had money. They told me they loved me every night. We had a great relationship, and you just did it. It just happened. It was just the people that you were around, people that you look up to on TV or music. Like I was obsessed with Guns N' Roses, still am. I love them. I wanted to be like Slash and Axl, I skateboarded for 15 years. The Piss Drunks was the name of the group that were my favorite people to look up to skateboarding. So, and I mean, it even says on every skate video, we are not role models, blah, blah, blah. But it had these dudes with no shirts on, leather jackets, skin tight pants, rock and roll, doing what I love to do, which was skateboarding. But it was just it's almost like you looked up. I'm not saying this is the case for your son. I just mean anybody can get involved with any kind of narcotic or alcohol, regardless of how their upbringing is. So it's like, I totally get it from your son's standpoint, because my parents were and are great, but I was doing coke all the time. I would not go out to a bar without a rock in my pocket.
Did you have, though, some experiences like when you were young? Because I could see that my son had some experiences in like junior high and high school where he didn't feel a part of, and he felt excluded. And I don't think he was bullied or anything like that. They wouldn't have allowed that in the kind of schools that I put them in. But like something was going on with him where he did not feel good about who he was.
Yeah, I did not.
You felt good about who you were?
I did. I kind of I've never been like down on myself. I'll get like depressed and anxiety and whatnot, but that's
within normal. Yeah,
exactly.
That sounds like within range.
The group of friends that I had in middle school, I still have to this day. And we're always, we're all talking. We're always in a group chat and whatnot. I've never felt like I wasn't good enough. I've never felt, I mean, there were times where I was insecure about my body and stuff, but that's not what led me to use or whatever, because I was a little kid and I didn't start doing all that until a little bit later on.
I think we though can have, because I was like you, like Nikki Sixx was one of my heroes when I was a kid. So like we see ideals of things, and if we don't have good mentorship in the home, for me,
for him, I had good mentorship.
I could see where, in addition to both sides of my family addiction, I've had multiple family members.
Yeah, you had a lot of trauma.
Yeah, as we talk.
Yeah.
So a lot of trauma there, but like for you being though still that tight knit unit that you have, but you have had people that have struggled within that unit. Later on, you've had family members, but you know, sometimes it's kind of like our bedfellows, maybe. So
I think
it's not accepting us in. And, you know, I could see if I ran with the drug crowd in high school, I just didn't, because of the friends I kept throughout high school. But if I did go with my friends that were doing drugs and drinking and actually hang out outside of school, oh yeah, it would have started in high school instead of college.
Yeah, you don't necessarily have to have trauma. There's not always trauma. Like I have some clients that they're not always, but sometimes.
Sometimes for sure. But like when it gets said, and not by Jason, just by everybody, you know, like, oh, it's trauma based. I'm like, no, not necessarily. Doesn't all need to be trauma based. Yeah, that's not true. So that's why I wanted to relate to what you were saying about your son. Same, you know what I mean? As far as it just happened.
I think my son maybe did have a little bit, but you're right. Though. It's not always. It's not always. A lot of it can be, your environment,
You're just fucking curious. I just want to see what it's like.
Yeah.
I just want to drink. It's right out.
Yeah. Even my older son, who is he's like the very stereotypical, like older child. He's compliant. He's easygoing. He's, he wants to make us happy. He experimented with weed once in high school. We used to do this carpool thing, and this boy that used to ride with us was smoking weed all the time. And I knew it. I was never going to say anything to anybody, but I wanted to be that safe place in case he ever needed some help. He would know that I would never rat him out. But so he got my son high once in high school, and I didn't find this out till much later, but it just wasn't his thing. And, he's 21. So his dad and my brother and they went out and he had his first drink. And I mean, it really wasn't a big deal. Like, I don't have a problem with people drinking or smoking weed, quite frankly. What I have a problem with is that if it's causing you to suffer, then that's when that's what really kind of, it's like that old saying. It's like, if you want to drink, that's your business. If you want to quit, that's mine.
Yeah.
Like that's the shit I'll help you with. Like, if you want to quit, if you want to drink, God bless you. Go run it until you can't. Yeah. Right? Work your shit out. If you need some help, I'm here.
Yep. And you said something really pertinent there that I didn't think of it in this way till you said it about suffering. It was like I replaced all that suffering that I was still feeling inside and just suffering within the addiction. Right. You know what I'm saying? It's like just replacing one thing with another. Just replacing.
So I've learned that everything comes with a price tag, right? And it's up to us to decide, do you want to pay the price up front or on the back end? So drinking and using drugs, you pay the price on the back end. Something like exercise or recovery work, that's paying the price up front so that you can feel good afterward. And it's so interesting. I talked to this lady who she's a doctor at Stanford. She's like the chief of their psychiatric department. She wrote a book called Dopamine Nation, Anna Lemke. Yeah, she was on the Social Dilemma. She has this concept of the seesaw, that homeostasis is this balance. And if we do something negative, like you hear runners, they go, I don't know why anyone would run. I don't run unless someone's chasing me. But if you, like the runners have the runner's high, so they pay the pain up front, but then they get the high on the back end. It's like the teeter-totter goes just as high on the opposite end. And that's what happens when we are using drugs and alcohol, is that we skew our dopamine reward system. Dopamine is not actually something that gets you high. Dopamine is actually a neurotransmitter that acts like a save button. You do something that makes you feel good, and the dopamine is released to say, remember where you got this feeling so you can find it again. Mm-hmm. Right. And so when we're talking about like cocaine or sex or whatever, you get high, right? But then there's the come down, and we're all familiar with the come down, right? Like I did cocaine and meth and all that many times, and that come down is brutal. So that's paying the price tag at the end. I have just learned to switch it for the most part, right? Like I still like some things I shouldn't like anymore, but I've just, with time, you sort of learn this, you sort of mature. And so that's the benefit of having time, is you have enough experiences that you get tired of paying the price tag on the back end. I just prefer, for the most part, to pay it up front. And so you suffer the pains of growth, or you suffer the pains of whatever it is that you're doing.
Yeah, I think it comes along with finally having a purpose and intentional living,
Purpose, yeah.
Yeah, it's
primary purpose is to carry the message and to help others.
Yep, and playing it out. That's one of the things I always do. Like my girlfriend and I went and saw one of my favorite bands of all time this last weekend, and people there drinking and everything else.
Who's that?
Seven Dust.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, and I used to party with them, and so it was pretty cool to afterwards,
friends.
Yeah, say hi. And nobody was high. Nobody was drinking. They've all kind of, turned the corner there and everything else. So it was pretty neat to 20 years later now, having known them that long, and be like, wow, we all kind of grew the fuck up. It's like, hey man, good to see you. I'm gonna go give my wife a call and check on the kids. Like, right on. Good seeing you. I love you all. We'll catch up another time. So
that's pretty cool.
It's interesting how, we recognize that we can flip flop, and go like, hey, I want longevity. I'm not living for this thing right here to feel this in this moment, or not feel this in this moment.
Yeah, I think that's one of the many cool things about recovery, is you get to keep who you really are. You get to keep all the best parts about you, and you get to evolve, right? It's like everything is always evolving. So we get to choose and be, like you said, intentional about how we evolve and who we surround ourselves with. There is I remember this guy I dated before I met my husband. He was like, I think those AE people are brainwashing you. I was like, damn straight they are. Like I intentionally was hanging out with people who are sober and thinking a certain way. And we are affected by our environment. So if you like, when you're talking about being around all the skateboarders or the, looking up to those, it's like you're taking in, it's brainwashing. It's like your subconscious mind. That's where all your thoughts and beliefs and identity is held, in your subconscious mind. And what's interesting about that is your subconscious mind can't differentiate truth from false. It's whatever message is repeated the most. Right. So people show up to programs and they're like, I'm not so sure about this higher power thing. Then they keep hearing stories over and over about how it works. And pretty soon they're like, okay, maybe I'll give it a shot. And then they have some experiences, and then they're good to go.
Yeah. For anyone that's sitting and listening, and when you have that first kind of spiritual awakening moment, you're going to go, oh, fuck. And you're going to hit the floor maybe. I know I cried. So I was like, hey, I don't have a problem admitting it. Well, we could continue on. We might have to do a part 2 here down the road at some point. But Mikey, random questions.
Let's do it.
You're up, brother.
Top 3 favorite bands of all time.
Oh, damn it. All time?
All time.
Oh, dear God. My husband would crush this. Can I use his bands like Rush and like his all-time favorite? Got a
little Neil Peart up in you.
Oh my God. I mean, he's got posters all in his office, frame posters of all the Rush guys. I know more about them than I care to. All-time favorite bands. I mean, when I was younger, it was like, obviously, Guns N' Roses, and I loved Journey. And I mean, I'm old, so it was like Rat and
nice.
Oh my God, so many.
Right on.
I can't. It's like you're asking me to pick a favorite child. I don't know.
Well, we all have the favorite kid.
Right.
It's okay. You don't need to say it on there. But there's always a favorite.
I have huge 2 nephews and a niece.
There's a favorite.
There's a favorite. Yeah, I grew up country, so.
All right on.
Yeah.
Well, we grew up kind of close to each other, right? You were Bay Area and I was Monterey Bay Area.
Yeah, super close. So I was going all the day on the greens back in the using days, but when I got a little bit older, I was all up in the country scene.
Oh yeah, who do you pull from country then?
I would be like Trisha Yearwood and Garth Brooks and George Strait, Reba McEntire, that whole Travis Tritt. Joe Diffie. I mean,
I'll have to text you a picture. I think I still got it with Travis Tritt. I'll have to look. Nice guy.
God, I love
Nicest guy. Yeah.
I can't do country. Never could. I tried. Can't
do it.
All right. If they were to make a movie about your life, who would you pick to star as you?
I was going to ask that before you answer. And if you can't think of somebody, I know who it was. It was bugging me, but I remember, or I got it.
Now you know who it is?
Well, I know who I'd pick to play you.
Who would you pick?
No, you go first.
Ah, damn it. Maybe Sandra Bullock.
Okay, yeah, I see that. I was going to say Alanis Morissette.
Oh, even better.
Mm-hmm.
That's
I was like, who does she remind me of? She looks Alanis Morissette. That's who it is.
What was the gal that? Drawing a blank because I was saying someone else and then the name just escaped me. Oh well, fuck it.
You know who I used to get a lot when I was younger was that chick that walked like Egyptian. What was her name?
Oh,
was it Bangles?
Oh,
Susan. Oh, Mike's too young.
Yeah. Why am I saying?
How old are you, Mike?
Hey, it's not.
I'm 33.
Okay, you're a baby.
He just knows everything about like music and older bands and stuff like that. So that's why he.
Oh my god.
Yeah, because
my husband is like this savant.
We always talk about how you've been on radio for 38 million years, so that's why I'm just like, all right, because I like the bands that I like, and that's it. Like,
who are your favorite bands?
Guns N' Roses, Led Zeppelin, AC/DC, Kiss.
Okay.
Montrose, all that kind of stuff.
That's I love all those too.
Mm-hmm. He's very unopen to new music. When we would travel on the road, hey Mikey, check this out. I was like, can you put Red Hot Chili Peppers on again?
I love the Chili Peppers too.
Oh, you know who I almost forgot is Pink Floyd. That was always my jam.
Floyd. Love Pink Floyd.
Still love it.
Yeah,
still love Pink Floyd.
We just love good music.
That's all.
Nothing wrong with that. It doesn't mean I don't like anything else. It just means I like the good stuff. That's what I say.
Well, hey, your question.
My question. Okay, if you can have any superpower, what would it be?
Oh, maybe like the Rapunzel turn things into gold.
That'd be pretty dope.
Time travel, is that a superpower?
Sure.
Oh yeah.
Time travel would be cool.
Yeah, dangerous but cool.
I already feel invisible because I already feel invisible. I was gonna, how some people say, "Oh, I'd love to be invisible." I'm a middle-aged white woman. I'm fucking invisible already.
Just shut up over there, Karen. It's Arlina, you yuck.
Can I just tell you a funny story?
Please.
I was at the grocery store with my husband, and we had this big cart full of food, and right on top was this little thing of blueberries, a carton of blueberries. This is very bad because we went over a bump and the thing fell over and all the blueberries. And I was like, fuck this. I took the carton and the receipt and walked into the store, and I had every intention of being like, that thing wasn't sealed. I was going to go Karen on them. And I walked up to the blueberries and I thought, I just going to walk out, and I fucking stole the blueberries. I'm like, I am invisible. I should start shoplifting. Because nobody's looking at me.
About white women walking into grocery stores. You're fine.
Yeah, nobody's going to question me. I
get followed by security everywhere I go because I got face tattoos.
Yes, so yes, for obvious reasons.
I can't. Probably could.
I couldn't because I would feel like fucking horrible.
Jason, do you have throat tattoos?
No, just a beard. I got sleeve and shoulder and back. Almost.
It's almost there.
I mean, I have a giant ass tattoo I didn't get till I was like 40 something, but nobody can see it. I forget I have it sometimes.
That's rad that you got a back piece in 40s though.
It's huge. It's really big. It goes from like the right hip. It's the lotus blossoms. There's four of them. Yeah. There's four of us in our family. There's, and then it kind of wraps around my side all the way up to here. And it says love and family and katana, and it has like smoke. It's super cool. Nice. Yeah. I was like, dope. that is, I do not want to miss this life experience without having at least one tattoo. Yeah, so I went big.
You went big and you went in a very sensitive place for your first tattoo. Good for you.
Actually, you know what's funny is a friend of mine tattooed my eyeliner on. So that was technically my first tattoo, but I don't really feel like that counts. She did my eyes.
Just got tired of it. Like, fuck it. I'm not putting it
Doesn't
on anymore.
count.
Yeah. And as a matter of fact, it doesn't even help because, well, this is for the girls. You put concealer on your eyes first anyway. You have to put the eyeliner over it anyhow. So it was a waste of tattoo.
My mom gave me shit for getting a face tattoo. I'm like, Mom, you tattooed your eyeliner or whatever. I'm like, you got your eyes tattooed. Okay. I didn't. You're more hardcore than I am.
I was going to say that's a very sensitive place. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Was it me or you? Question.
You.
Oh, shit. All right. If you could have dinner with any one person, living or not, who would it be?
Oh, shit. This is going to make me cry. My mom had just died.
Oh.
So it would be Mom.
Yeah.
Sorry, this was supposed to be fun.
Hug. No, hug.
Thanks. Oh, wow. I mean, so it just happened in November and she was only sick for 22 days.
I'm sorry.
Thanks. But she was so proud of me because I was sober.
Sure. And she got to see that. She saw the best version of you.
Yeah, for a long time. And when she died, I was the one who took care of her and I was able to give her morphine and you know what I mean? It was like anyway, it would be Mom.
We'll make it fun again. Marry one, kill one. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
Ruined your game.
No.
Worst guess ever.
We're obviously very sorry to hear that, but as cliche as this sounds, I'm Catholic. I don't know about you, but she's in a better place now. She's no longer in pain. She's not suffering. She's looking down on you, smiling.
Yes.
You took care of her. She knows where your heart is. She felt the love from you, and vice versa, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And actually now I'm kind of the dick because you did tell me that when we talked before the interview and I completely forgot.
Who knew I was going to go there with that? I should have said something like Mother Teresa or
we've gotten very religious answers from that. That's for sure.
No.
People want to talk to Jesus.
Lamar Odom did.
Yeah.
Lamar Odom. Who are you guys? How are you guys getting these guests? You need to hook me up. Friends.
Lamar Odom's that's who he wanted to talk to, and we're just like, I would like to talk to Jesus as well.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't think about that
questions.
Yeah. What? A lot of people don't think about that kind of stuff when you have dinner with whoever. I'd say like, oh, Al Pacino, because I love Al Pacino, or pretty much anybody who's in a Scorsese movie.
Oh, you did say alive.
Yeah.
Man, there's so many cool people.
No, we said anyone.
Dead or alive. Yeah.
You said dead or alive. Yeah. I went right for the crybaby.
Oh, it's okay.
So many amazing people. Oh, you know who I'd love to have dinner with is Oprah.
I mean, who wouldn't? I would too.
I would like to have dinner with Oprah.
Yeah, people oftentimes see, the top of the iceberg with her and not knowing what she came from.
Oh yeah,
what she made.
I mean, I feel like she raised my generation.
Oh yeah,
I feel like she still is. She's raising this generation too. Oprah's incredible.
I watched Oprah. I remember coming home and watching Oprah be like, "Oh, that's fascinating."
Yeah,
Oprah's great.
Yeah, I would like to have dinner with her too.
Any more random questions, Mikey?
Let's go with the final thought.
Okay.
Yeah.
Arlina, it's the floor is yours. You got any final thought for people that are struggling with substance abuse, mental health stuff? Obviously, people that reach out to you, it's not just addiction recovery related stuff, but with self-esteem and
Yeah, I do hypnotherapy and stuff. I feel like healing the mind and the heart and the spirit is really important. For anyone who is struggling, feel free to reach out to me. If you go to soberlifeschool.com, you can put time on my calendar. I will talk to literally anyone. I'm in a good place in my life. I really just want to give back as much as I can. There is a solution. There are many solutions. If you're suffering, you just don't have to. And, Brene Brown said that empathy is the antidote to shame. So for any self-love, and self-esteem, that's kind of where it's at in my mind. So That's all.
All right. Perfect. Well, thank you. You're absolutely awesome. And we appreciate you. Uncle Mikey, anything else?
No, I'm going home.
On that note, keep knocking doors down.